Okay, so hello and welcome to Algorithms Live. This week I'm speaking with Errichto, who's been doing some good work in educational streaming on YouTube. And so let's give you a little bit of a background about Errichto. So his name's Camille. He was a world finalist this year for the University of Warsaw, but he also went to all of these world finals in CodeJam, Distributed CodeJam, TCO, Hacker Cup. You may have seen many of his problems on Codeforces. So he's got over 200 plus problems. And he's also the head of the scientific committee for algorithmic engagements. So if you haven't tried the Polish problems, like algorithm engagements has some really tough but really interesting problems. So Camille, thanks for coming on Algorithms Live.
Yeah, thank you a lot for having me, and hello everybody.
Yeah. So I guess my first question before we start talking about the problems that you wrote is how did you come up with your name Errichto?
Well, I can correct you here. It should be pronounced Errichto with
Errichto.
H.
Okay.
Yeah, Errichto. And it's just a bunch of random letters. So the issue with some meaningful name is that it's often taken in various websites. So when I tried to invent some name like 10 years ago, I just took a bunch of letters that are easy to pronounce, at least in my language. Right now, I understand that it would be good to also make it pronounceable in English easily. But I guess that's fine.
Yeah, that's cool. Is all kind of similar to the story behind my handle, but that's pretty funny.
So what is the story behind your handle?
Yeah, so I needed to make a handle for video games and eventually coding contests, and I started putting random letters together. But one thing I wanted to do was I like the Q without the U in English will make like a K sound, or in Chinese, like that, like the Qin Dynasty and things like that. Um, so I pronounce it Takin, but it's yeah, it's also has some similarity to the video game Tekken, which I guess means Iron Fist in Japanese. I was reading, and I've kind of taken it to mean like brute force in competitive programming because I like clever brute force problems, which seem weird to put those two things together. So yeah, that's roughly the story behind my name.
Okay, so that's quite complicated.
Yeah,
My
I've added.
explanation was easier.
Yeah, well, originally it was just like random letters, and I liked the QI combo. But as I've gone on and explained the name to people, it's become more complicated. So, all right, so let's switch to you, and we can start talking about this bubble cup problem, the interstellar battle.
So the
So,
one about trees, right?
yes, yeah. So we switch to your stream, and you have your hello world. People are asking for the link of the problem, so I'll put that in the chat. You can also get it on the Algorithms Live blog, has links to all the problems. I put the interstellar battle up. Okay, so you can start explaining the problem.
Okay, so I will show you a bit simplified version of a problem, and then once you understand it, you are free to go to the BubbleCap website and try to solve the full version. But we will focus on something that we want to use in the next problem today. So the simplified version will be that there is a tree, and every node or every edge, I think every node, has some probability of being destroyed, or well, probability of staying alive. So let's say that for every vertex we know some probability like 0.7, 0.4, 0.5, and so on. And we say that at some moment every vertex will die with its probability. And now we ask, what is the expected value of the number of connected components. So on average, what will be the number of connected components? For example, if the following two vertices are destroyed, for example, this vertex is destroyed, and I don't know, this vertex is destroyed, then the remaining vertices will form a tree here, a single tree here, and a tree here. So some vertices were destroyed together with edges that touch it, incident edges. And what remains are here 3 connected components. And we ask what is the expected number of those. So that's the statement. And actually in the problem, we are given some queries, something changes, because otherwise we could do some bottom-up dynamic programming that isn't much interesting, but we'll focus just on inventing a different approach to that, a different solution that later you can try to use to solve the full problem. So is everything clear here?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and there is nothing much between the statement and the solution. There are no many hints that I can give. And we will just jump to the solution. The key to understand something we will talk about today is to understand that if we count something, we can also count some other items, some other representatives or bosses that are in one-to-one relation with our objects. In this case, we are supposed to count connected components, and it's very hard to do that. It's very hard to, for example, iterate over possible connected components because there are many of them. There are exponentially many possible shapes. For example, if a tree is if a tree is one root with many children, then any subset of those can be a connected component. So we have something like 2 power n connected components, possible shapes, and many more if tree is more complicated. So here, actually, instead of counting connected components, we will count its LCAs or its roots. So here, let me change color to blue, maybe. Blue. Let's, with blue, mark LCA of every connected component that remains. LCA. And right now, instead of saying we count connected components that remain, we say we count those blue vertices, because every connected component has exactly one blue vertex, one LCA. So, or you can call it a boss, or maybe like a representative of that group. So now the question becomes simpler. What is since the number will be the same, what is the expected value of the number of blue vertices? And now it's quite easy to formulate what is this blue vertex. When a vertex is LCA of some connected component that remains. Well, for sure, this vertex must stay alive, and its parent must be dead, because otherwise we would have blue somewhere closer to the root. So what is the probability that this vertex will be blue? Well, the probability that it will be alive, 0.5, times probability that the parent will die. So it's probability that I'm alive, times probability that parent dead. Parent is dead. This is the probability that one vertex is blue, that a vertex is blue. And since the expected value is linear, there is some law about it. We can sum this up. We can sum up the probability that this will be blue, this will be blue, this will be blue, and so on. And the sum of those probabilities will be the answer, the expected value of the number of blue vertices. So it's actually a simple formula, no need for any dynamic programming. So yeah, that turns out to be quite cute and easy problem. Once you understand that you don't necessarily count strange shapes, strange connected components.
Right. So you're basically rooting the tree somewhere, and then to be a representative of that subcomponent, you're picking the LCA because it's makes it easier to count. And there's just this one-to-one correspondence between the LCA roots of these subtrees and the components themselves.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool. I like that because it just simplifies the counting, and then it just makes it easier to do the linearity of expectations because, yeah, like you were saying, if you wanted to consider all the different shapes, that's really hard. And then it's really hard to know how many connected components there are unless you do this transformation. So pretty neat. Okay, so I guess the next problem we're doing is this convex hull problem, right?
So yeah, the next problem is something I think I covered in one of my streams. I'm not entirely sure because it's still about the expected value. Actually, I think that the final problem we are about to solve today will not be about the expected value, but still it's similar thing, counting something and finding the expected number, so the average value, if we repeat the random process many times, is a similar thing. So we can express the following in terms of probability, expected value, and we can with some other definitions. So now let's say there are some points on the two-dimensional grid, and every point again will die or will remain alive with probability 50%. It doesn't have to be 50%, but it's to simplify things. So some vertices will stay alive, again with blue. So some vertices are alive. And now we are wondering what is the expected value of the size of the convex hull of remaining vertices. Size meaning the number of vertices. So here it would be 4, even though 5 vertices are alive.
So it's not the expected size, like area of the convex hull. It's the number of
it's not
points
about
on
the area, it's about the number of points. Actually, with some more insight into geometry, we can do that with expected area.
Oh, wow.
But it's just slightly harder.
Yeah.
So in this problem, again, we want to use the same technique. So to find some representative, something like this, just a bit different. So actually, I will say that such a convex hull has some number of, I think edges is easier rather than vertices, but vertices are also fine. So this convex hull has 4 edges. So this is one of them. So I'm not sure if I said that. So here it's a 4, and we want to find the expected value of this number, of the size of the convex hull. Or alternatively, you can say among all 2 power n possibilities, so there are 2 power n ways to choose a subset of points, we can find the sum over sizes. It will be the same thing, just multiplied by 2 power n. So we can care about the sum of sizes of convex hull among all 2 power n ways to choose points that will be alive. And here, this convex hull has 4 representatives, so it's not anymore 1-to-1 relation, but it will still allow us to count something because we wonder in how many cases this edge is an edge of a convex hull, So let's say it will be in, I don't know, 7 cases. So in 7 cases, it adds +1 to the answer. And if we count the same thing for every other edge, so for this edge, and so on, the sum of all of that will be the final total answer. Because right now, what happens for this convex hull, we know that we can say here we have +1 to the answer, +1 to the answer, +1 to the answer, and so on. Instead of saying that the size is just 4, we say that every edge adds +1 to the answer. And we just wonder for every edge how many times it will add +1 to the answer.
I see.
And then it turns out possible because, once again, like in the previous problem, there are so many possible shapes. If points are more or less random, there are, well, 2 power n way, scenarios to consider. While here, if you want some limits in this problem, n is, let's say, 100. And I think we'll try to get n cubic solution. Actually, it's possible to get better solution, but it's clear that we can't consider scenarios separately. And the technique allows us to do just anything polynomial, because for every edge, so for every pair of points, also, for example, I don't know, this pair, we'll count how many times it will be an edge of a convex hull, and we will add this to the answer. And the last thing we haven't talked about is what does it mean that, so how many times it will be an edge? Well, this will be an edge if and only if all the alive vertices are on one side.
Okay. So you look at the half plane, right? So you draw the line, and then if they're all on one side, the right side of the half plane, if you're going in clockwise order around, then
yeah. So for example, because if we have this set of points, will this edge be in the convex hull? It will not, because this line has points on both sides of the line. So let me get back here. While this edge, this segment, is an edge of a convex hull, because all the points are on this side.
So how does this go with? So I guess my question here is, how does this go with winding order? Because you could be running through the vertices in clockwise order, or you could be running through the vertices in counterclockwise order. Does it matter which side the points are on?
So it depends on the problem whether you care about. So for this segment, we see that the hull is on the right from this segment. Sometimes we care about it. For example, when we count area. For this segment, this other segment, it's on the other side. So if we just care whether a segment belongs to a convex hull, it doesn't matter at all. So here what we'll do, we don't care about the order, for example, clockwise, counterclockwise. So let's get back to this edge. We know that there are, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 points on this side. So we have 5 points on this side and 1 point on this side. So how many ways there are to choose some subset of points on only one side? Well, it's easy, because it's just 2 power 1 to choose points on left side, or we choose only on the right side, so 2 power 5. And of course, these 2 points, the endpoints of a segment, must be alive. So it just like it is times 1 possibility, because we know what must happen with these 2 vertices. So this is the number of subsets of points such that this chosen segment is an edge of a convex hull. And this is what should be added to the answer when we count the sum over all possibilities, the sum of sizes of convex hulls.
I like this a lot. So I guess here I can ask my question or talk about this for area. So let's switch over here. So you can also, when you pick a pair of points, you could say that this is the first point, this is the second point. Or you could go in the reverse order and let's say, I'll just keep it the same points. You could have, this is the first point, this is the second point. So you have a direction. And when you were saying like for area, like we could use some geometric fact about, let's say we wanted to know instead of the size of the convex hull, number of points on it, we wanted to know what's the area. You said the order actually mattered here. So would you just count the number of points, number of ways you could choose points only on one of the sides? And you would say right side or left side, depending on the order you put the points?
Yes, so when we count the area of a convex polygon, like forget about finding convex hull or something. Just we are given a convex polygon and we want to find its area. Then we want to go in one direction only. For every segment, we add something to the answer, but it must be in some direction. So we add what the product, the vector product, however it's called.
Yeah, cross product.
Yeah, cross product. Yeah. So we must do it in some specific order. For example, in such an order that for every segment AB, we want to have the rest of a polygon to the right from AB. So then it means we go clockwise. Depending on the order, maybe we'll at the end have to multiply the answer by -1. So just it depends on our formulas.
Or you could take absolute value. You may have negative. Okay. All right, so let's switch back to yours. And
so some very short, maybe small hint about the area problem is just it's about for every segment to count how many times we would go through this segment in the standard algorithm for computing the area. So we only add it to the answer when it's, for example, clockwise. So this segment is added only when all the other points are on the right. So the only difference is that instead of counting both on the left and on the right, we would just count those points on the right. And we would say that, for example, here it would be instead of 2 power 1 plus 2 power 5, it would be just 2 to the 5. This many times we would have this segment in this direction, being one of the segments of a convex hull. So this times the cross product we would add to the answer.
Cool.
And that's it.
Okay. So then now I guess we can talk about the disjoint triangles problem and see how this relates to the techniques that we've been learning so far.
Yeah, so this is like the coolest problem, I think, today. So the one that we covered these two problems only to show you the technique and now to show you the cool problem, I think. So the problem is quite easy, I think, to state, to describe. Given a set of points, I think the number of points was up to 2000. If I remember correctly. Find the number of ways to choose two disjoint triangles. So to choose a triple of points and the other triple of points, such that like interiors of these triangles don't intersect. And just like in previous problems, we don't want to care about collinearity or something like this. I think in this problem, we can assume no 3 points are collinear. No 3 collinear. I hope I'm writing this correctly. I'm not sure. Collinear.
Yeah,
Okay.
that looks correct. I think maybe not the E, but yeah.
So this is without this E. IN. And if you are aware about this technique, I think many people would immediately find an idea for a solution, and it turns out incorrect.
So what's the incorrect idea?
The incorrect idea is to again iterate over a line and try to count points on one side and the other side. So what about, for example, what about this line? So the technique suggests that we count points on both sides, and we want to know what is the number of cases when this line contains one of segments of one triangle here. So what I would do is, let's say, maybe there could be some more points here. What we could do is count points in one side. Here it would be 3 points. Count points on the other side. Here I see 6 points. And we say that there are 3 times 6 choose 3 possibilities. Okay, so there are 3 ways to choose a point on the upper side. And there on the other side, we want to choose a triangle, right?
So you choose 2 on the others.
So I'm choosing 3 points in this side to form a triangle. So this is why we have 6 choose 3.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And this seems very easy. And it is how we would apply the technique. And what is often the case is that we count something once or twice or something like this. And it's fine if we, for example, all the scenarios count twice. Here, actually, it's easy to see that indeed we count the same thing twice, because later, let's switch to, let's say, red. If we consider this line, we would count the same, like
Scenario.
on opposite.
Yeah.
Just saying that a segment should be on this line. So here there are 4 points on this side. I think 5 points here. So to the answer, we add 4 times 5 choose 3. So this is the number of scenarios such that one segment is on this line. And also the third point is somewhere here. For example, this is a triangle, or maybe this is a triangle. There are 4 ways for that. And on the other side, we just choose a separate triangle consisting of 3 vertices. So 5 choose 3. And a tricky thing is to notice why it's incorrect. For example, I can count, I can do what I described now, and then at the end, divide the answer by 2, because every scenario I counted twice.
So what are the scenarios you don't count twice? Or what do they look like?
This is a possible issue, like that something we count either fewer times or more times. And such a scenario is here. For example, if one triangle looks like this and the other looks like this. Right now, I think we'll count this 4 times, because this line is a line that separates the 2 triangles and it contains one of the segments. The same for this line, and symmetrically the lines on the other triangle. So actually also it's possible that there will be 3 valid lines, or I think also 1 valid line. You might want to consider something like this. It's the shape actually of YouTube Rewind. So here we have one line. So we considered lines that separate the two triangles such that they contain ones of segments. And we see that in various cases, the number of times we would count the scenario is different. And it's this problem really looks like something for this technique because it's very hard to do anything else,
Right.
and it doesn't work.
Yeah. That's a really tricky case too. And then you might start thinking like inclusion, exclusion, or something complicated.
Yeah.
And
So
then the bound of 2000 just makes it really hard to do anything like that.
So it's very hard to do without some n cubic,
right.
Because you can't iterate over one of triangles. You only can iterate over one segment.
Right.
And it's anyway with some tricks because you can't separately iterate over segments and then count what is on the left and right, because then you would get n square segments times O of n to count points on left and right. So you must do some sorting by angle, something like this. It's possible to do. But still, it doesn't give us a solution. It's impossible to, for example, at least I'm not aware about some algorithm that would count just these possibilities that look like this. So something where one line separates the two triangles, only one case.
Yeah. Too many. There seems like there could even be like more cases, but
yeah. So I think the possibilities are that there are 1, 2, 3, or 4 such lines. So this is the case on the right is when there is one line. At the bottom we have with 4 lines.
And then this top one we have 2.
And also I think 3 are possible, but like we will not try to get that here.
Okay.
So we must do something else, and I think this problem isn't easy. It isn't easy here to come up with a solution, and a few teams solved it during the VK Cup, but it wasn't an easy problem. I think it's around div1d complexity, difficulty on Codeforces. And a solution is easy. Like, it's easy to fix it, but hard to come up with.
Yep, those are the best problems.
So maybe a little bit about getting to this solution. What we want to generally do with this technique is to either find one-to-one relation or maybe two-to-one, something like this. Something where we would count every scenario the same number of times, maybe 2 times, for example, and then at the end divide the answer by this number. So here actually it is possible to find some object that divides the triangles and it appears exactly some number of times. And actually it's something that looks like this. I think there is a name for that, like outer something. I don't remember a name in English. It's called styczna in Polish.
How do you spell that in Polish?
Let me Google translate that. Styczna is tangent. Yeah, it's a tangent.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an outer tangent. And actually, any two convex objects, so convex disjoint convex polygons, for example, they have exactly 2 outer tangents.
That's neat.
So, yeah, for example, they can have quite strange shapes. And they don't have to be triangles. So for example, this one here, so this will be one polygon, convex polygon, and maybe a triangle here. How many outer tangents they have? Exactly 2. It's always the case. So this is one, and this is the other one.
I drew another case over here. And so I drew a white triangle and
Yeah.
pentagon, and you can see my blue tangent runs through this point here to this point, and then the other one runs from here to here. That's cool.
Your drawings are much prettier than mine.
Yeah, I think that's why I use OneNote, but I also had a little more time to draw while you were drawing yours. Let's switch back.
Okay, so yeah, what we should do is for a given set of points, I think I will open a new empty blank page, and we'll from the beginning draw a set of points. So new grid, and now for a set of points, what do we do? What is a solution for a set of points? We iterate over a segment, so a line, for example, this line, and we say that one of the points belongs to one triangle, and the other point belongs to the other triangle. So this was always a case for such an outer tangent that at one point it touches one convex polygon, in the other point it's the other. So here we count numbers, we count points on the left and right. Here it would be 4 and 3. And how many possible triangles are here with this point? Well, it's 4 choose 2. So 4 times 3 divided by 2. And how many triangles here? For example, this triangle, there are 3 choose 2 triangles. That is here 3 times 2 divided by 2. So generally, we count points on the left and right, and to the answer we add L times L minus 1 divided by 2 times R, the same with R. And this is the number of triangles such that one of outer tangents is here, is this line. Maybe you will want to multiply that by times 2, because maybe you also want to count triangles such that for this point, triangle is on this side, and for the other point, it's on this side. But it turns out actually unnecessary if you go with this line. If you consider every pair of points, like for example this pair, ordered pair, and then at some moment it will be the other order. So A is here, B is here. At some moment in the future, you will consider it in the opposite order. Then you're fine. You don't have to multiply it by times 2, but it's only about the implementation.
Okay.
But yeah, the lesson is to try to find something that appears exactly twice here, or like in the first problem about LCA, exactly once, and then you count this instead, and you get a solution.
So then I think the only tricky part is you need to move through the points, because you only have enough time to pick a pair of lines, so that you can still count the size of the left and right side.
Yeah. So to get n squared times logarithm instead of n cubic, you do something that is just very standard in geometry. So instead of separately considering every line, we fix one point, and then we sort all the other points by angle, and we do like something like 2 pointers. But I don't want to dive into that because it just some geometry, some other topic.
Well, we also have an episode of Algorithms Live that kind of covers that. I did that with Lewin. I think it's called Geometric Sweeps. It's like the 4th or 5th episode or something. So if you're interested in how to speed this up from n cubed to n squared, or n squared log n, you could watch that episode and put the pieces together and solve this problem. So yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about this problem before we switch to the other topic? Or
I think that's it. So if someone likes a solution, and for viewers, if you like geometry and you are able to implement that, I strongly recommend to indeed try to implement the solution to make sure that you understand the technique, that you understand whether you should divide by 2 or maybe by 4, because you counted something 4 times. Just try it, and well, implementing solutions that you learned about is very important.
Right, definitely. Okay, so I think what we can try to do now is switch to cameras. So let me, and then we can start talking.
I'm looking for. Okay. Do you see me now?
All right. I guess we can see each other now.
Okay. Awesome. So hello everybody again. I'm still here. And yeah, I guess we'll talk about some educational content and about competitive programming in general.
Yeah, I think what we should do, I think we made a list before, and we can just like go through topics one by one. And anyone that's in the chat right now should say something in the chat. And if you have a question or want us to, or if you have a comment about what we're talking about, and then we'll just talk about things a little bit more. That's a little funny. Someone made a funny comment in the chat. I guess we can talk about this. So the funny comment is asking, why are you not red on Codeforces? Particularly to me, not to you, because you are red on Codeforces. And I guess I haven't competed in a long time, but so I've never reached red myself, but I've coached a lot of people to become red and to become world finalists, which I'm more proud of. So yeah, I'm not very fast. I can solve hard problems, but I don't get to them in a Codeforces round. I solve them after usually. So that's my excuse. All right, so let's move into educational streaming discussion, which I guess we've both done. So I have the Algorithms Live channel, and you have the you've started your own streaming channel, like one at a time. But we were talking a little bit before about what are ways to make competitive programming more popular, and I wanted to hear your thoughts about that, and we can start talking.
So about the educational streams in general, or what?
Just like I think before, when we were talking about the discussion, we were talking. It's like, what are the ways you could make competitive programming more popular? And you wanted to compare it to an esport. So talking about I don't know, people playing League of Legends or Hearthstone or streaming those things.
Yeah. So I guess the reason why, for example, esports or sports in general are very popular and are a big thing is that it's very enjoyable to watch. And you don't have to be an expert to watch it. So I'm sure that many of, for example, LoL or Dota players aren't good playing Dota. It's enough to understand the basic rules. And it's possible to understand those rules in an hour, at least in such a degree that it will allow you to see something and understand whether some side is winning or somebody did a very big mistake. And it isn't a case, unfortunately, for competitive programming, because here only programmers can watch it and understand it. And even if someone is good in algorithms, then for him, watching a programming competition will not be so cool, like not necessarily so cool, because things move quite slowly and you don't sit in people's heads. You don't understand whether somebody has a wrong idea until they do a mistake in program, but also it's hard to notice. So I think, for example, Top Coder Open this year tried to do a good job about it, and I think Lewin and Scott Wu, if
Yep.
I'm correct, they did the broadcast, so they covered the championship, and they tried to to present problems, to show some insights, to understand people's codes, who does what, maybe also, if possible, who did what mistakes. So then it's cool, but still it's only directed towards a very small group of people.
Right.
While esports are much easier for watch for, I guess, millions of people.
I
So
think
that's the difference.
when I was coaching at UCF, a coach would say that it was the most boring spectator sport ever. Like I can't think of a spectator sport that is, unless you really know what's going on, that isn't that exciting to watch. At the same time, I thought that Scott and Lewin did a great job uh, in the TCO stream. Like I thought that was one of the more enjoyable ones to watch. But again, if you just don't know the kind of algorithms they're talking about, then like if you're a lower ranked competitor, then you're going to have a really tough time like understanding the techniques that they're going over. So I definitely think that's true. Trying to think. So, what were your opinions of like some of the other broadcasts, like ICPC World Finals or Code Jam? We can go through those one by one, I guess. Hacker Cup have a broadcast this year? Do you know? Emil?
I think now it's okay.
Oh, you had an issue with the mic?
I think my internet went off. It's not
Oh,
about the
no.
mic, it's about the internet connection here. Because like first we scheduled our stream to be a week ago, and then I was still in Warsaw, where I have good PC and internet connection, while now it's very close to Christmas, so I'm in my family town.
I
And
see.
so also the internet here is slightly worse.
I see. No, that makes sense. We moved the stream just for the Codeforces round because I tried not to schedule it during Codeforces rounds, but I messed up this time and didn't realize I had done that. I haven't had a live stream in a while.
I'm back. Okay.
But yeah, I guess so. The question I was asking before the disconnect was, what did you think of the other broadcasts? Like, did Hacker Cup have a broadcast this year? Do you know?
I think Hacker Cup didn't.
Okay.
So what else I remember?
Code Jam.
ACM ICPC,
Okay.
the finals try to create quite good podcast. So the commentators have access in advance to the problems. Also, I think there is a person that his job is to just read people's codes
Yeah.
during a competition and to say, okay, this guy has an overflow.
Right.
And of course, it's a lot of it's hard work to do, and it only gives some small information, but it's a cool insight.
Right.
Something that thanks to this, you not only want to watch the scoreboard, but also you can learn something from watching the commentary, and that's cool. While as I told you a week before, I didn't quite like the code gem stream.
Mhm.
And also I heard this opinion from other people, because there was nothing much about the competition, to be honest. So there was, for example, an interview with a problem setter, something about some specific problem, but most of it was just, I think, Google wanting to show that Google is a nice company to work in.
Right.
And so, for example, some interview with an intern. Uh, was your internship cool? Yes, my internship was cool. Uh, I understand the business decision, and such a big contest. They put a lot of money in it, and they want to hire good people. They want to
Mhm.
find good people thanks to this. So I understand the business decision, but so from when my friends wanted to watch the stream to cheer up for me, since I was at the bottom of the leaderboard for almost the whole competition, it was nothing about me for the whole time. Only maybe a tourist screen and Makoto screen was shown for a few minutes, and
Right.
other than that, it wasn't about the competition. So it was actually hard to follow the competition, because they only showed the leaderboard once every hour. So it wasn't cool to watch for people
Yeah.
interested in competitive programming.
Right. It's actually, I think back of a TCO stream before they invited Scott and Lewin. I think fall of 2016, I watched the first TCO stream. I watched some TCO streams before that, but they had one where after the contest, they interviewed Piotr. And the questions they were asking Piotr weren't the questions I wanted the interviewers to ask Piotr. I'd rather like have a conversation about maybe some of the problems or how he thinks about problems or something like this. And they were just asking these really bland, like normal questions. And I thought, so it was actually motivation for me to start Algorithms Live, because I was like, oh, I want to talk with people about algorithms or cool problems or
Yeah,
things like
and
this.
I can do it better. That's
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
can do it better. I'm not the best competitor. Like, so I'm not a red on Codeforces, but I understand problems well enough that I can talk to people about them or understand solutions. So yeah, I'm glad that their stream is getting better. I think it was really smart of them to bring Scott and Lewin in, but like in 2016 in particular, I just remembered there was this gap between the competitors and the commentators, and uh, it was motivation to start this. So I guess some good came of it. Let's see if there was any. Yeah. Yeah, so apparently Hacker Cup only streamed the award presentation. A bunch of people are wishing you Merry Christmas. So yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy Holidays and all those things. Uh, yeah, and then
And
it's unfortunate that like CodeJam seemed more like marketing
mhm.
than like a esport kind of thing. I mean, you can still do the marketing side. I think like when you look at esports, they have a marketing side, but the emphasis is still on the contest. And I think that's just a smarter decision, like as a longer term business decision, because you bring more viewers in. Because it, like you said, nobody will want to watch the stream if it's just all about how good Google is.
Well,
It,
maybe some people do want to watch a stream for this reason, because
yeah,
the pool of people interested in that is, I think, much bigger than the pool of people interested in the competition itself. I'm not sure about it,
yeah, me
but
neither. I guess
more
I haven't
people
done.
can understand what they're saying about the Google and working in the company. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Great. So I guess we'll talk about like our streams for the next part. And so I guess the question I'll ask now is, how did you get started with streaming, and what was your motivation for starting?
So my motivation. Well, um, I think many people kind of dream about being a YouTuber or something. So I don't see myself in, for example, I don't know, playing games, something like this, because I don't think I'm better than other people in that, in playing
Right.
games or in funny commentary about it. But I think that I'm quite good in explaining the algorithms. So maybe this is what I would do. And there are no streamers that would do competitive programming on high level. There are only a few that do something related to algorithms or competitive programming. So there is Algorithms Live.
Mhm.
There are some streamers from India. I'm going to have also such, I don't know, an episode, an interview, something like this with I don't know how to pronounce his name, Gaurav Sen. Gaurav
Oh yeah,
Sen.
yeah. I've seen his.
So also in our chat, I saw Code Report.
Yeah,
So
code report.
he weekly does like news from competitive programming, what competitions took place, who took what place, some short every week thing. So that's a cool thing. So that's something that could possibly bring more people out or keep people interested. If you're just sitting in your home and sometimes solving problems, then
Mhm.
it's much less cool than the situation when there is a community and there are
Yeah.
not only posts about this, but also something in YouTube. You can watch news. I think similar thing is what Petr's doing. Not only he's showing some hard problems, but also he pasted results top 5 from some competitions. The very bad thing about it is that often he is a few months behind with that.
Right.
So Code Report is better in doing it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's impressive. He used to be more frequent with his blog posts. I think he's gotten busy with work, but the it's amazing how long he's done the blog and kept it up. Because I've definitely had patchy areas for running algorithms live. Just I think that the hardest thing for me was doing the live stream, like scheduling it at a specific time and running it. So I've started to switch to pre-recorded videos. And I think the other thing that is really tough is scheduling two people when you want to do an interview episode like this, so that the times overlap. There's the time zone issue. Um, and then the harder episodes to plan because you have to meet beforehand to plan the episode. And so those pieces are pretty tricky. But
Yeah. I'm sure it's much easier to just sit behind the camera and start streaming yourself, because I can do it. Like, I just need time and I don't know, an empty apartment. So
right.
that's much easier. Well, yeah, I understand that scheduling something for two people is harder, especially if right now it becomes an evening for me and it's an early morning for you.
Right, right. Exactly. Let's see. So you were talking about like educational content on YouTube. Uh, you're mentioning so that there's a few videos on like coding interview prep or things like this.
Yeah.
So it's like
So there is some number of people that, for example, visit Codeforces regularly because they are interested in those competitions. And well, it's cool to create some materials for them. For example, to create some lectures, some blog posts. Mm, it's those are people that anyway do compete. Well, it would be cool to also bring new people.
mhm.
So uh, I guess I'm interested in doing some, I don't know, classes or camps just locally, for example, in Warsaw, to take people that are maybe talented in maths or just interested in some puzzles and to show them programming. This is how I started. I was good in maths and somebody told me, go try the National Olympiad. Um, but in the internet was so when I started streaming, what I did was I checked out Twitch to see what are good programming streamers, because there are barely any streamers on YouTube about programming. So you do some live streams, but it's not really programming. It's more about a lecture.
Right.
So other people also do some lectures, some materials, maybe showing a single problem. But on Twitch, there are also programmers that do like a few hours long stream where they program, and there I try to learn what is good, what is how they combine programming with some interaction with viewers. So here, shout out to Adam13531. He was the guy who helped me a lot starting to stream. He has a programming stream on Twitch where he creates a game. Well, he creates a game where you write some bots. And in YouTube, I tried to see what are some algorithmic content. So I found something related to competitive programming, but like 10 times bigger than that, or maybe 100 times bigger than that, is coding interviews. Because this is something that a lot of people want to watch because they have a reason for that. They prepare for a coding interview. So top videos for that have like hundreds of thousands of views, maybe millions, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So this is something big, and this is some area where people also can start being interested in algorithms, I guess. This is a way to grow the competitive programming community. And I think that cool coding interview problems don't differ from our problems, for example, on Codeforces. I'm trying to choose such problems and create videos about them. So there are some boring ones that, I don't know, maybe I will also cover some easier ones, because still harder ones are interesting to me and for my viewers, but on the other hand, they are not accessible for some people. So there are a lot of things that are hard to decide whether I should do easy content, hard content, I should mix or not. Should do streams with solving problems, or maybe lectures.
Right.
So yeah, I'm glad that some people make suggestions to me. I'm very thankful for that, because it helps me. It's not only some blind guessing, but I have feedback from people. That's cool. And I'm still experimenting.
Yeah. Well, I think so. When I started streaming, I thought about there was a lot of content out there for really hard problems, or for the very top. Like you look at Piotr's content on his blog, like the problems he covers tend to be really hard. He started. This is maybe a few years back, but then he started including some problems that were a bit easier but still beautiful, that could end up hitting a wider audience. But I realized, like, you look at the coding interview questions, those questions are like very easy competitive programming problems. And then sometimes you'll see these blog posts, or like you were saying from the TCO stream, there'll be very hard problems, but there isn't as much in the middle. But I also relate to the not sure, like, at what level of difficulty your explanation should be at. Should you be targeting really hard problems, are more interesting for top competitors, but then maybe you completely lose somebody just starting out. And so what I've tried to do, at least in some of the Algorithms Live episodes, is show a few problems that show something really simple, like what we did in today's episode, and then gradually move up to the more complex stuff. So there's kind of something for everyone. And I think if you don't think about difficulty too much, and you just go after what you think is interesting, not necessarily hard, I think that is good, because it keeps you interested in running the stream.
Well, after a few years of competing, interesting things are almost only hard things. Well,
Right.
of course, it happens that an easy problem is cool, but if during a contest I see it and after 2 minutes it's solved,
Right.
then I rarely think about it back, like after the competition. So it's also like after some time it's harder to choose what is good among the easy problems. It's also when you create a competition
Right.
for very strong competitors, it's quite hard to choose good easy problems.
Yeah, we've noticed that with so I'll do problem setting for NAIPC, and that is the biggest challenge, is finding like those interesting easy problems. And I've kind of, in recent years, if I ever come up with an interesting easy problem, that's more of a point of pride for me than coming up with an interesting hard problem. So I can think of a few examples. I think last year's uh, NAIPC, I had a problem on a grid with ones and zeros, and I think you wanted to make the parity of each of the rows or columns at some number, and you wanted to do that with maximum number of bits. And that problem looks like it's pretty hard, but then it has a pretty simple solution. And I thought that was an interesting problem because it looks like it might be some kind of flow thing or something really complicated. And that's the kind of problem I'm most proud of these days. I used to be more proud of my harder problems, but now I've changed, I guess. Let's take a look at the questions. So we have some people saying that they wish they had seen competitive programming earlier in their life.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I also wish I started much earlier,
Yeah,
because some people started at the age of like 10, 12, something like this, and there is so much time like during school. Also, after the school, when you go to the university, you don't have that much time. I think that then also, especially when you want to get a job and to work at the same time, you don't have so much time. So I wish I started in maybe primary school, and I would be better by now. For example, tourist, I think, started at the age of 7, something like this.
wow.
I'm not saying he would be weak if he started at the high school, because also people can get good very quickly. For example, Radeusz from Poland, I think he started 5 years ago, and now he's one of the best in the world. So he has a talent, of course. But if he started earlier, he would be only better now. So yeah, I think it would be good to get to young people with programming. Every time we have, for example, some I don't know, Central European Olympiad, COI. We talk with other team leaders, with teachers from like other countries, about like the system, what can be do, what camps and competitions we have to promote among the young people. I think it's very important to find some people in primary school to get them interested in competitive programming. Well, in algorithms, in programming early.
Yeah. I know for the US, so I'm involved with USACO, which is USACO is how we pronounce it. And we say that like the hardest thing to get involvement for USACO is just getting the word out to high school teachers and students and things to compete. I know when I was in high school, I just didn't know anything about USACO or competitive programming or any of these things, and um, like I would have definitely been doing USACO a lot if I had known about it. I knew how to program, and we had small programming contests at my school, but It was nothing like USACO or what was on Topcoder. I had no idea what Topcoder was at the time. Codeforces didn't exist yet. So yeah, I guess that shows my age. Is like I messaged Mike Mirzanov on Codeforces the other day, and he told me I was one of the first people to join Codeforces because my ID number was so small. So yeah.
It's for sure much easier now with so many platforms, so many materials, and the whole community. But still, it's about just showing some pupils that something like this exists.
Right.
Because not many people know about it.
Yeah, and then there's like some tricky knowledge too. I think when you look at algorithms videos, or you look at algorithms books, they teach like a really standard set of things. And then there's the competitive programming 3 book, which can get you up to speed up to a certain point, but it covers a lot of really specific like techniques that you would find in the textbook, like Dijkstra's algorithm, the norm spanning tree, all these other things. And then you look at competitive programming, and there's all these little tricks that really don't have names. They're kind of unique to competitive programming. They can make your implementation way easier, and you don't really know what they look like. And because they don't have names, they don't come to mind. It's like, oh, you want to talk about this cool technique. You don't know how to describe it to someone else. And I think there's just like this wealth of really weird knowledge in competitive programming that's hard to get access to. And that's definitely something I've been trying to bring to the streaming, is like the trick you showed today. I would never see a trick like this in a textbook. I guess maybe something related with the linearity of expectations in a discrete math book, or the one-to-one correspondence trick. But the specifics of how to use it for this kind of problem, and like the set of problems you see that use this trick, and then how to speed it up with a sweep. Like all of those tricks you maybe wouldn't see in an algorithms textbook, or think about how to combine them or come up with those combinations. So
someone in the chat, Jacob, envies you that you have so low ID in Codeforces.
Yeah, well, so maybe I'd get more respect. I don't have the red rating, but maybe you should post like your ID number, and having a low ID number make you famous. I don't know.
So the current top coder coordinator, Misov, is, I think, violet, purple, and some of the best guys from Poland are, I think many of them are yellow, because they just don't compete currently, and I'm sure they are on a very, very high level.
Yeah, the UCF team from last year was very, very strong, and I think they were all blues on Codeforces or something. And so when they got their medal at World Finals this year, a lot of people were commenting on the chat. They were really surprised they were so high ranked. But they were a lot stronger than their rank for sure. But one thing for is thinking, so I think about like other US coaches, and I think I have a higher rating than Danny Slater. And so that's my only point of pride for rating. And so for those of you who don't know who Danny Slater is, he invented splay trees and link cut trees. And so if you're ever having a bad day, try to get your rating up above Danny Slater, and then you can have that as your point of pride. Because I think he's blue. I can't remember, but he obviously doesn't compete much.
I think it's like light green, something like this.
Something. Oh yeah, it might even be lower. Yeah, I think it's handles Duhara. So yeah,
I don't remember. Yeah, but he once wrote to me with some alternative solution to my problem in a contest.
Yeah, and he's obviously very smart. So it's.
Well, yeah. Also, for sure, the fact that someone is very good in algorithms and he knows a lot, for example, he invents play trees, it doesn't necessarily mean he can do good in Codeforces contests, it's not only about taking part in competitions, because some people just don't compete.
Right.
It's also about the speed, about like
Yeah.
you should quickly read the statement, don't think much, don't prove everything.
Right.
So also maybe have a template. You must be able to debug quickly. So there are people that would be very good in long competitions.
Right.
I think that wouldn't
Oh,
do so well in short contests.
yeah, I used to do Code Chef and I liked it more because I like longer competitions and I like problems that are harder than what you can give in a 5 hour contest. And so this is why I want to try some more algorithmic engagement problems because you said, is it a week-long contest or?
Yeah, the qualification round lasts for 1 week, and like almost every day, two new problems appear.
Mhm.
So and it gets harder within a week. So at the end, it's like for the weekend, you have 4 problems for the whole weekend.
Mhm.
And you can imagine that since those problems should distinguish between very good people, they must be very hard. So they are among the hardest problems I've ever seen. So yeah, I think it's something that nobody should be able to solve in 2 hours. So somebody can come up with a solution in, I don't know, 3-4 hours. Then sometimes implementation is quite long, but it's okay if you have so much time. But it's very common that only a few people in Poland will solve a problem during a weekend, or sometimes nobody. But recently, Marek Sokołowski, NMBV Mar from Poland,
Mhm.
uh, he tries to get the max score every year. So I think this year he lost 2 points. Well, for a problem, you get 10 points.
Mhm.
So he was very close to getting the max score. And I think in the previous 2 years, he had the max score. So that's very impressive.
Wow. Do you think he spends his entire day working on all of these problems or because it's a
Mm,
week-long contest or?
I think people try to get a lot of time for this contest. So I also competed a few times,
Mhm.
and you really need, for the weekend round, you really need, let's say, 20 hours at least to be devoted to that. And perfectly, you shouldn't have any more, I don't know, plans, appointments, and you can just skip one night, maybe sleep isn't so important. And then I think it's possible to do like 30 something hours during a weekend. So yeah, those problems really require time
Yeah,
because they are hard.
I think the closest I've come to a contest like that is it the Internet Problem Solving Contest? Is the one that
But it lasts for 5 hours, right?
well, it used to last 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they changed it, I guess. But and I always liked so I would do that in a team, but I always liked the really weird questions. There was one where you had a dog and you had to make sure to play with the dog every so often. Like you had to tell it to do something and then like it would give you a problem, you'd come back.
Mhm.
And
So there was a similar problem this year where you had a restaurant and customers were coming and saying, for example, please give me food with this name, and then you're supposed to uh, print this name and
mm,
hit enter, or automate it with some, I don't know, JavaScript maybe, and then it became harder. For example, there were some puzzles. For example, someone, instead of saying please give me this food, this whole sentence was printed backwards. So also you had to print the name of the food backwards
oh, I see.
and stuff like that. So you had to add new logic every, I don't know, 20 minutes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's a cool
interesting, but
concept. not
the difficulty in Polish engagements is about the algorithms.
right.
These like truly hard algorithms. So it's slightly different from IPSC.
Yeah, I think one thing I like about IPSC is just because of how weird it is. It's kind of like the April Fool's Day contests where like it just scratches a different itch. But I also like having really hard algorithmic problems. So they serve different purposes, but I like them both. Somebody's asking where they can find uh, algorithmic engagements, like problems from algorithmic engagements.
So the website is Skopul. What I've written that right now in the chat.
I found this link. I put a link in the chat. Is that the site too, or?
I think this is an old website. Right now it says how not to lose in casino online. Actually, I can tell you a story, because main.edu.pl is a very old website with Polish problems. It was alive for, I don't know, maybe 10 years, maybe more. So this is a website from which I learned C++.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first I learned Pascal from this website. And then with time, problems were moved to some different website, Skopul. But I think this website was still supposed to be live, but somebody forgot to pay for the hosting for the next year. So we lost the website and somebody bought it. And right now it's not main.edu.pl isn't for like some informatic education. It's that it's apparently an abbreviation from Youth Academy of Internet Casinos.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I don't recommend this website.
Okay. I remember I used to go to main.pl to find Polish problems and solve them. So that's a sad story that main is dead.
Right now it's Skopul.
Okay.
I'm posting also a link. Here you go. Yeah. So what I don't recommend for people, let's say, living in Russia, or maybe also, I don't know, Romania and so on, is to read problems from this year, because we often use problems from Potyczki on Petrozavodsk, for example, maybe Moscow workshops. So we give them one contest that is usually called Grand Prix of Poland. So if somebody wants to solve problems from Polish engagements, I recommend problems up to 2017, not this year.
Okay. Let's see if we have anything else to talk about. So if anyone has a question in the chat, they should ask it now. And then, but this might actually just be a good place to stop the stream.
Yeah, I guess. I think we talked about everything we planned to talk about.
And more. Yeah. I'm glad that people could learn the story about main.pl dying, though. I didn't know that. And it's kind of amusing if you didn't know it's moved to casinos.
Yeah, I think it's cool also to share stories like this. While, of course, it doesn't help in getting better in competitive programming, things like this make people interested in that. It helps for the community, I guess.
Yeah.
For example, on Codeforces, there are some posts about, I don't know, some people drinking a lot.
Right.
And of course, it won't help you getting better. Reading about it won't help you getting better. But if something like this exists, people come back to Codeforces to read also cool stuff, funny stuff.
Yeah.
For example, this history about main website. I think So it's strange to do videos for that, I guess. So I have a Facebook page. I think this is a good place to share strange stories like this. But I hope things like this will, like people will appreciate it, and just will feel. I I guess they will enjoy being in the community.
Yeah, I liked the threads that started a long time ago. It says, you know, you're a competitive programming addict when, and then they have all these lists. I think those are really funny, and that's another example of this sort of things. So that we do have two more questions, and then I guess we'll answer those questions and then move on. So this one, Yuraj Singh says, do you guys have any YouTube goals? And it's pretty obvious that we both want 20 million followers and lots of money.
I think the current goal people should have is like 100 million, because
100 million?
the top is 78 or maybe 77 million.
Yeah.
So I would be happy. I think you would be too, with 10,000 subscribers. And I think it's a reasonable goal, but it's only this many people interested in competitive programming. You can't reach 1 million.
Well, yeah, I think at some point maybe people that get bored with interview questions or want to go beyond the interview questions might jump to the competitive programming side. Maybe that's how you get more views than that. But yeah,
there is an upward trend. For example, Codeforces. So Mike, every year, Mike gives some statistics, and there is a trend. Every year there are more people, but still, I think there is some cap. So I heard that being a serious YouTuber starts from 100,000 subscribers, because then this means maybe you can treat it like a job and you can drop anything else, and this is some magical number, but I think it isn't possible to reach for us. I'm not sure. Maybe it is.
I don't think so either. For me, one thing, and Scott Wu has this goal too, and I think you do as well, is like growing the competitive programming community would be more my goal for this stream.
Like, a goal is cool if it's measurable, in my opinion. Of course, we can say I can also train to try to be better, but something like saying I want to train push-ups to do 100 push-ups or something like this. This is easier to measure, and it's easier to have such a goal. But yeah, I started the channel not to have 100,000 subscribers. I started to teach people and to help people to make competitive programming more popular.
Yeah. Well, I guess I can, let me set a specific goal. My specific goal, maybe have 10 guests. That would be the best. Like get Mike Mirzanov on here. That would be fun. Or Tourist or Piotr or any of those people. I talked to a few people, so I'm trying to have more guests, but I'll keep some of the ones that I have planned secret for now. But I think that's a good goal. I'm excited to hear that you're going to have guests on your stream as well. I think that's going to be a really cool thing.
I have a possibility to have my stream, my guests, on site, because I live in Warsaw and some other people also live in Warsaw. So maybe some streams with two people problem solving, where one person is implementing, the other is talking, something like this. I think some of my friends would be up for that. And regarding the goals, I think for me a magical number would be to have 100 viewers at one moment in my stream, because during my first stream was quite big, because I also told my friends about it. It was in my Facebook. I guess people were hyped about it. It was in Twitch, and I got 99 people at the top moment. And there is an achievement in Twitch for 100 viewers, and I have it says that I achieved that in 99%. But yeah, it's hard to get 100 at the same time, and I think this is my goal with what I will be happy, because I only was able to get 99.
I think my first stream ever had over 100 viewers at once on YouTube. I guess there weren't that many streaming for competitive programming at that point, so people were curious about it, so they tuned in early. And especially in that first year when I was doing a lot of these episodes, I would get more viewership now. I think then there was a huge spike in number of people ready to watch a stream when Makoto did his episode, but then we had technical difficulties and we had to not run the stream. And then the next week, not as many people showed up. So there was this moment where that could have happened. But yeah, and so people seem to be happy with the answer we gave.
I can. So Miss Laugh says that I can try to do more streams like an AI bot. So the answer is I'm trying, but it isn't that popular. Maybe because it's still a lot. There are still a lot of implementation algorithms.
Oh no! Looks like we disconnected again. Well, I guess are you back yet?
Okay, so was I out?
Yeah, you got disconnected.
Okay. So I will repeat my answer.
Okay.
That I'm aware that maybe AI bots, something like this, is more fun to watch. Maybe more people can watch it. Looking at the numbers from my streams, it isn't that extremely popular. Maybe because not a lot of people are aware about my existence, about my streams. It's cool when, for example, coding game or earlier C1 games terminal, they sent an email to their audience, to their competitors about my stream. Then some new people find me, so that's cool. But yeah, I'm going to try some more streams like this in the future. And I guess I'm looking at the numbers to see what is good, what is bad.
I think this stream in particular has been a lot of fun because we're having like this conversation about competitive programming in general, and like we talked about a problem that was kind of cool. But I definitely want to do more of these like interview style ones. I think there's something to that community aspect you were talking about that could be really fun. And so I guess we'll do one last question before signing off. It says, please tell me about your competitive programming journey.
I think I can talk for a minute about it. I can talk for an hour about it. So maybe here I will just do a short version.
Okay.
That I was very good in maths, starting from primary school or even preschool. So I learned numbers just playing with calculator. So I didn't read books. I hit 5 times 5 and the calculator showed me 2, 5. So from this I learned how to multiply numbers, for example. So I was talented in maths. I was a few years ahead. So when I was in, let's say, first class, I already did materials from the fourth class, something like this. I took part in competitions. I won some. I don't know. I guessed so I never went to, how is it called? IMO. IMO.
Oh yeah, the Mathematics Olympiad. Yeah.
I was 1 point away, unfortunately. So also 1 place away. So that's sad. But in high school, I won some international competition in France. It wasn't very big, but it's something. So I was the best in the world for the first time. And also so I learned Pascal and C++ in the middle school before high school, but not really I wasn't good in algorithms. In high school, in my first year, somebody told me about the Olympiad. So I started trying to get to the finals. I didn't succeed. Second year, I didn't succeed either. But only because something very stupid with overflows. So I thought that this works because it worked in my computer in home, but it was a different architecture. So actually the story is that I used long instead of long. And it worked in my Windows machine in home, and nobody told me before that it's the different thing. I thought that we should use long for 64 bits.
Right.
It isn't true.
It's true in Java. This is my code in Java, I guess.
It isn't true in C++.
Yeah, that's the only reason is just long versus long. Like otherwise, I'd use C++.
And after my second year, so before my last year, third one, I bought Corman book, how is it called? Introduction to Algorithms.
Oh, yes.
So I've read the whole thing because there were no like the good classes or a teacher in my school. So I just read Corman. And then in my third year, I was actually quite close to getting to the International Olympiad. So I got like 10th place in the national stage. And then thanks to this, and also I trained during like summer. So at my first year of university, I managed to get into a very, very strong team for ASIM ICPC with Marek Sommer and Błażej Magnowski. So we trained together, and from this, I only kept getting better because I was competing in Codeforces rounds, for example. I also started having friends that are interested in that. So it's much easier when you can talk about it, when you can ask someone about it. So from this, it was only up with some team competitions, some individual competitions. And I guess my biggest individual achievement is either second place in Google Code Jam this year, or 2 years ago, winning the Polish engagements.
So you won algorithmic engagements?
Sorry?
So you won algorithmic engagements before you were on the scientific committee? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Very cool.
So I won 2 years ago. A year ago, I was fourth. And this year, I'm organizing.
Very cool. Well, I guess that the best way to end this episode is probably that story. So, and I don't see anybody else with more questions. So, Camille, thanks for coming on Algorithms Live and having this conversation with me. Yeah. And I think this was a really good episode, and I really like the trick you showed us on this disjoint triangles problem, but also thinking about expected values this way in geometry problems and graph problems. And the bijection idea is really cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I hope you do more episodes with people, maybe on at least a weekly or monthly basis.
Yeah, I want to try to get it up to weekly. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna continue my flow series after this, but I should have one more guest very soon. So I'm trying to get 2 more.
And I also hope to see such a conversation style of streams on your channel.
Yeah, I like them a lot. It feels more like a podcast. So I think this is something that is needed for growing the community. So
okay, so let me advertise myself one last time. Go subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Errichto. And if you use Facebook or Discord, you can also find on my channel links to those. So you can reach me on Facebook, Discord. I post some problems or I don't know, info about contests on Facebook page. So yeah, and thank you again for having me here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being a great guest, and we'll see you guys next week.